Hello, welcome back to another edition of the Faithful Fan Sports Podcast. I am joined by team member Luke today. So we're going to start with the NBA. The postseason, the regular season wrapped up last night, and we got our postseason matchup set. So in the Eastern Conference, we have Milwaukee taking on Detroit in an interdivision matchup, Toronto, Orlando, Philadelphia, Brooklyn, and Boston, Indiana. Luke, what's your initial takeaway when you see these 8 teams in the playoffs?
I think for the Eastern Conference, I hate to be negative. For the first round, I don't really see many opportunities for a good series. I don't. I think Milwaukee and Toronto will steamroll the Magic and the
Pistons.
And then I think the Celtics, I know they lost Smart, but I think that if the Pacers hadn't had Oladipo all year, they wouldn't even be in the playoffs. So I think you can think of it like the Pacers. I basically think the Celtics should play a non-playoff team in the playoffs. So I think that's like Celtics in 5, and then I think maybe the only team with a chance to surprise people is the Nets. But even then, I don't see it as an entertaining first round in the Eastern Conference. Nothing must see to me.
So for some reason, I saw a tweet last night from the NBA with all the teams in the playoffs in the Eastern Conference and the seeding. I can't believe that one of these 8 teams is going to play for a championship. I mean, it just seems crazy to me. I know Milwaukee and Toronto have had good years, but Toronto's never been to an NBA Finals. I don't think Milwaukee's been there in a long time. And it's not necessarily to say that these aren't good teams. These are just different teams.
Yeah, they're different. The only team that would be getting in that you'd be like, okay, I've seen been there, done that would be the Celtics.
I'm looking historically, the 76ers too.
Yeah, I guess so. But the Celtics, I don't know if they can really flip that switch. I don't think, especially without Smart.
I mean, the team from the Eastern Conference who have made the NBA Finals over the last 8 years, neither of them are even in the playoff field.
Yeah.
So I think the favorite, it's a tough conversation. Milwaukee doesn't have the experience. They're young, but they looked like the best team. They had the best record in the NBA, so it's hard to count them out. I personally would say the favorite in the Eastern Conference would be Toronto. I think they have a lot of depth. I mean, we haven't talked about it much, but they brought in Marc Gasol at the trade deadline, sort of waiting to use him in the playoffs. So I think that's going to be interesting to see how he can get worked in there. Kawhi is going to turn it on once you get to the playoffs, and Kyle Lowry can still play, of course, too. They've got the shooters you need in the playoffs, like Danny Green and Norman Powell, and then Siakam's probably going to win Most Improved Player. So I would say Toronto is the favorite out of the East. What about you?
I echo everything you just said. I'd say Toronto. I think they have some championship pedigree with Leonard. I think they have some pieces. I really like their role players. I think they're the most complete team in the East. I think that the 76ers should be, but something just hasn't clicked there. I mean, the 76ers on talent alone should be way more of a contender that they are. Just something hasn't clicked there.
The bench.
I don't know.
They have a horrible bench.
Yeah, they do. But no, their starting 5 is that's an NBA Finals starting 5. It is. They should. There's no excuse for them to not compete in these playoffs. None.
Yeah, I don't know. Going to the West. Quick rundown here. You got Golden State and LA in an old rivalry. Denver and San Antonio, Portland, Oklahoma City, and Houston and Utah. You know what the biggest crime of this is?
What?
Golden State and Houston are going to play in the Western Conference semifinals, and you could argue that that's the best series in the postseason.
You could argue those are two of the best teams in the league right there. That is sad. I think that the real loser in all of this is obviously the Clippers. I mean, they had a good season, couple late losses. Now they're going to play the world champs, 2-time defending world champs.
The other absurd thing about the West is one of Denver, Portland, Oklahoma City, and San Antonio will be in the Western Conference Finals.
I mean, I think Denver. I don't think Denver has the experience in the whole thing to beat San Antonio.
I disagree.
I like San Antonio in that series.
I like Denver.
Give me a Greg Popovich coach team all day. Give me them in 6.
Denver is 34-7 at home this year. They have home court advantage. I don't think they lose a 7-game series in the first round.
Zero championship pedigree. Zero. Not literally.
Well, who on the Spurs? Nobody on the Spurs does except the coach.
Yeah, I mean, LaMarcus Aldridge just plays in big games.
And so is Paul Millsap.
Yeah, how's that work?
Well, what about Aldridge? Has Aldridge ever?
I know. Okay, fine, whatever. I'm not gonna. I just have Spurs in 6. That's what I got. I got Spurs in 6. That's what I got.
You know, we're talking about the Rockets Warriors like it's a done deal. I think Utah could give Houston a run for their money.
Honestly, this is gonna sound. I think to beat a team like the Rockets, you have to. I don't want to say it's luck, but you just have to have James Harden literally just miss shots. Because if he's on his game and he plays like he played this year, he's just not going to beat them. Unless you're the Warriors, no one can beat them. If James Harden is on his full game, nobody can beat them but the Warriors. You just can't.
The Jazz were the best defensive team in the Western Conference this year.
No, that's a tremendous matchup. That's a team that can get in his airspace and get in his grill and make him take tough shots.
That's what I was saying.
It'd be a good series. You're absolutely right. But I still like the Rockets now.
I do too. Give me Rockets in 7.
6.
What about Portland OKC? They had a couple really close games this year.
Just no excuse for the Thunder to lose. That'd be totally different. Now you have Paul George and Westbrook, and you're going up against a team. Is McCollum healthy?
Yes, McCollum's back.
Okay. So I think you're putting up. I think Westbrook and George are more talented than Lillard and McCollum. And this team that just suffered a devastating injury to the kid Nurkic. That's just, the Thunder. It's time for Russell Westbrook to do it in the playoffs. He's a great regular season player. He's averaged triple-double the last 3 years, but not much playoff success. They got to the finals that 1 year.
He made an NBA Finals.
I know. He had Kevin Durant then, Noah. He doesn't have Kevin Durant anymore.
But he has Paul George.
Centerpiece of a team, Noah. It's time for him to make playoff runs.
Is Paul George a better player right now than Kevin Durant was in 2012?
I know, but I know Paul George might be better, but I think that's still Westbrook's team.
I guess.
It's his team. Just is.
All right. Well, we're in the Western Conference. We're in the coaching carousel period of the NBA now that the regular season is over. So we heard 4 pieces of coaching news today. The Grizzlies move on from J.B. Bickerstaff. He was promoted to interim head coach last year after they parted ways with David Fizdale. They gave him the coaching job full-time last summer. Now they're moving on from him. In addition, the Cavaliers are moving on from interim coach Larry Drew, the former head coach of the Atlanta Hawks and the Milwaukee Bucks. They are moving on from him after he took over as the interim coach for Ty Lue. The Sacramento Kings are moving on from David Yeager, and the Chicago Bulls announced a contract extension with interim head coach Jim Boylan, who replaced Fred Hoiberg midseason. So, Luke, between Sacramento, Cleveland, Memphis, what's the most desirable coaching vacancy in the NBA?
Right now, this is going to sound – I don't know. I just don't think there's a lot looking up. I think the Grizzlies – I don't know what direction the Grizzlies are in.
Oh.
I don't even know if they know.
To add some light to that situation, Mike Conley today said publicly he has no interest in taking part of a rebuild. If that changes your opinion.
Honestly, I'd want to coach the Kings right now. I think that backcourt with Buddy Hield and De'Aaron Fox is legit. I think that's two guys you can build a win team around. They're a big man away. I like Willie Cauley-Stein. I do. I don't think he's a starter on a great team. I think he's a piece. I think he's excellent energy big off the bench. I like Willie Cauley-Stein, but I don't think he's necessarily a starter. Harry Giles hasn't quite ever really recovered from those devastating knee injuries fully.
Bagley?
I want to go. What?
Bagley.
Yeah, Bagley too. Yep. He's
he had a nice second half. So go ahead.
I want to coach the Kings.
Kings?
First of all, no, it needs to be addressed how despicable it was that they fired Joe Mancini.
Absolutely.
The best season in 13 years. In franchise history in 13 years. And they canned the guy. And he's done a nice job developing those young players.
He got unrightfully fired in Memphis and Sacramento.
Why did he get fired in Sacramento? Like, what's even the reason?
The one thing that I can come up with is I know in Memphis at least he had difficulties getting along with the front office. I don't know if that was an issue in Sacramento as well. But remember, before him, Sacramento fired Mike Malone, who's now the 2 seed in the Western Conference in Denver.
Yeah, that's a bottom, at least bottom 10 functional franchise in pro sports. At least.
So what jobs do you think that aren't open right now but could open up? Obviously, the Lakers one is one that's a situation of turmoil. It's a different conversation. Could you see the Wizards opening it up and letting go of Scott Brooks?
No, I personally think that with the emergence of Bradley Beal this year, that they will just run it back with a healthy John Wall and see what happens. I don't think
John Wall's not coming back next year.
You don't think?
No.
Yeah, maybe. Then I don't know. Maybe they could. I don't know. To be honest, you caught me there. I forgot John Wall was a free agent.
He's not a free agent.
What, they going to trade him?
No, he had another injury while recovering, and he's going to be out all the way through next year as well.
Oh, yeah, he just signed an extension recently. He's going to miss all next year?
It's looking that way, yes.
Wow. I don't think they'll fire Brooks. I think Brooks is a respected guy. I don't see it. Could be wrong.
The only other one that isn't made him, that's one of the ones that I'd look at and say maybe. The only other one that nothing's happened yet that I'm thinking maybe would be New Orleans with Alvin Gentry.
Yeah, that was they were a dumpster fire this year.
For no reason, too.
Yeah, they were a dumpster. I mean, their roster is not that bad. It really isn't.
No.
You tell me you can't win with Anthony Davis, Julius Randle, and Drew Holiday? You can't be respectful with that? I don't buy that. Like, no.
Their season was over by December, and they had all three of those guys. Julius Randle and Drew Holiday both had career years, and Anthony Davis is still Anthony Davis. When the season started, they had Nikola Mirotic, too.
Is the talent of a team like the Clippers really that better than them?
If Doc Rivers coached the Pelicans, they would have won 50 games this year.
Exactly. The Clippers are just a more structured, functional system.
Which sounds crazy to say, considering before our generation, considering what the Clippers were, Doc Rivers has done a tremendous job there. He doesn't get enough credit for it, but what he's done with the Clippers has been tremendous. He would get my vote for Coach of the Year in the NBA this year.
I would probably give it to blanking on the Pacers coach. I can picture the guy.
Nate McMillan.
He'd get my vote. Kept that team relatively intact even after the Oladipo injury. I think that he would get my vote. But Doc, I like Doc too. Big Doc Rivers guy.
So the NHL Playoffs started last night. We saw 5 games with only 2 home teams winning, so higher seeds being the Islanders and the Sharks, 2 teams that were trendy picks to be upset. That's just the nature of the NHL playoffs, isn't it?
NHL playoffs, the best playoffs in sports, by far the most unpredictable. I know it was just a game one, but with the Pistons going to Milwaukee and beat the Bucks.
Probably not.
The Jackets, they do that last night. Jackets beat one of the best teams, regular season teams in NHL history last night. Sergei Bobrovsky's really building his free agent.
Yeah.
Just the whole thing. He's building up his value. He's big time in that game last night. They got off to a rocky start, but he really was stones in the second and third period. Just a wall.
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple days ago, we talked on here saying the Penguins would upset the Islanders. We all were in unison the Golden Knights would beat the Sharks. Has your opinion on either of those things changed after last night?
I had the Sharks in that Golden Knights series.
Oh, you did? Sorry.
So I still think I like the Sharks. They won last night.
Yeah. Do you still like the Penguins?
Yeah, I do. I think that if the Islanders are going to burn out a little bit, I think that I don't see Malkin and Crosby and all that experience that they have losing to a team like that.
There was one game last night that made me sort of take a step back on my initial pick in the series. And it was the Blues going into Winnipeg and beating the Jets, scoring 2 goals in the third period. They looked good. Binnington looked good. I think the Blues can win that series.
Binnington's the best story, probably one of the best stories in the NHL this year. Just a guy having a year.
Yeah.
Hell of a year. Standing on his head at times. I like that Blues team. And I like Winnipeg in that series, though. I'm sticking with that pick, but I think that'll be a closer series than a lot of people might have given it credit for.
Yeah, I'd agree. So
the Jets aren't the same team they won in the first half.
No,
they're just not.
So we are now 2 weeks away from the NFL draft. 2 weeks from today. Do you think that Kyler Murray to Arizona is a done deal?
Yeah, pretty much. I think it's just a matter of where they send Rosen.
See, here's my problem with the Cardinals and Kyler Murray in this entire situation. If you believe that Kyler Murray is your guy, if you think he fits your system better, he's a better quarterback than Josh Rosen, don't apologize for that. You don't need to come out and explain your reasoning and your decision-making to clowns like you and me. You get paid to watch quarterbacks. I do it in my free time. I trust your football opinion over mine. I don't want to hear you apologize for it. Apologizing for it means you have doubts. It means that you're letting people get in your head about where you're going to go with your franchise. Same thing with the Giants. If you don't think that Dwayne Haskins or Drew Lock, if you don't think your quarterback is in this draft, go ahead. I don't have a problem with you not taking him, but don't dance around the media. Don't lie. And oh, by the way, the Cardinals a couple months ago, they tweeted in lieu of all these Kyler Murray rumors, they tweeted Josh is our guy. How's that really looking right now?
Yeah, I think they did Rosen very dirty there. I think the guy deserves to be respected and not publicly fooled like that. And I also agree with you that they're being very if that's what you want to do, just do it. There's really no need to explain yourself. You're an NFL franchise after all. I mean, I don't really like the whole offseason the Cardinals have had. I don't see. So we're going to hire a head coach that was fired by a college team.
Yeah.
I think that Kingsbury might have been warranting of an NFL OC job, but a head coach after going 5-7 in a college team? Was his career record at Texas Tech under 500?
I believe it was 38-44 in 5 years in Lubbock.
I'm sorry, but why would you hire that guy in the NFL?
And another thing.
No, really. Why? Why? I don't get
it. Well, I mean, their reasoning would be obviously the spread offense, the change of offense in the NFL. So if you think Kyler Murray fits that offense better than Josh Rosen does, first of all, no one's going to disagree with that. Obviously, Josh Rosen is not built for a spread Texas shoot-'em offense. There's no arguments there. Kyler Murray's a better fit for that. I think the reason, and oh, by the way, if my opinion on this is different. There's a difference between believing that Kyler Murray is your guy and that's why you need to get him than giving up on Josh Rosen right now.
Yeah,
giving up on a top 10 quarterback a year later is asinine. When he had a coach who was there for 1 year with the worst offensive line in football, he had no weapons to speak of.
I don't know how you can invest and say this is your guy, and then him not be a year later after an injury-filled season 2 is hurt. I don't get that.
You know what my thinking behind it is?
No. Plain and simple. Kyler Murray does not have the talent of a number 1 pick.
No.
Oh.
Well, talent.
Maybe not the size and the whole thing.
Talent is a different conversation than size. But, so I think that my personal opinion, standing back, no inside sources, no nothing, I think Cliff Kingsbury is purposely trying to do something outlandish to try to prove to people that he belongs. He's going all in. He's putting all his chips on the table so that 2-3 years from now, if Kyler Murray's winning you football games and taking you to the playoffs, he looks like a genius. 2-3 years from now, he's back at Texas Tech and out of the NFL.
Yeah, exactly. I agree.
Would your opinion be different in regards to Dwayne Haskins and the Giants?
I don't. Well, my opinion on Dwayne Haskins, not a franchise, not a can't miss QB prospect to me. And I think the Giants should hold off a year. I think they should just run with Eli for 1 more year. Don't extend Eli. That was stupid. It's stupid to extend Eli because I think he's just that you can't be too loyal to him because I think he's done. But I also don't think Dwayne Haskins is your guy. So if I'm the New York Giants, I just run with Eli for 1 more year, and then I pick my guy in 2020 because I think that'll end up being a better quarterback class.
Yeah, between Tua, Jake Fromm, Justin Herbert, one of those 3 guys.
I think you're better off getting a franchise guy to run with over the next however many years in 2020 than 2019, especially at 7.
Yeah, I mean, I think those other quarterbacks are. I'm not a big fan of Drew Lock personally. I don't know how good I think he is, but we'll see. All right, we're now gonna get to some NASCAR talk. We're joined by our team member Ian. How you doing today, Ian?
Hey, I'm good, guys. Just want to say, thank you for letting me on the podcast. First of all, it's definitely great to be a member, you guys, and finally talk to you guys.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
So right now with NASCAR, we just finished up Bristol. Kyle Busch beat out his brother Kurt Busch in a nice. I want to say it was a pretty good race, especially ratings-wise. Ratings-wise, it's still in the 1 points, which is not really big, but it definitely progressed from last year's 1.5 rating. That was at Bristol because that race was in fact delayed on a Monday, and that was in fact on the original Fox network. This race was on FS1, which some people get, some don't get because cable box and all that. So with that progressing, I think that's a great idea. A great thing for NASCAR, especially for FS1, because NASCAR and FS1 ratings last year were bad. So I just think it's great to see that Bristol did well, extremely well, and especially. Of course, people hate that Kyle Busch won in the end, but Kyle Busch has dominated Bristol. I think this might have been like his 6th win, at Bristol or something like that. I think he had 4. It might have been. No, actually, I think it was his 8th win. I think his 8th win at Bristol or somewhere around that, but still.
Mm-hmm.
It was a great win for him.
So, what do you think? Do you think the sport is headed in a good direction in regards to growing as a whole and getting a larger audience?
You know, with the sport right now, I think it's heading in a much better direction than what it was, last year, 2 years ago. Because last year in 2018 for NASCAR, it absolutely tanked. It sucked big time. And there were only 4 races last year that I remember that went up. I think that was, if I'm correct, Michigan around June. That went up 4%. Was it Chicagoland on NBCSN? That wasn't even on regular NBC, but NBCSN went up 15% in the ratings. It was Chase Elliott's first win at Watkins Glen, which of course was overshadowed by the Brian France arrest. I'll talk about that in a bit. But that went up 10%, and I think last one was the Roval. That went up, I think, 5% than what it was with regular Charlotte 2017 to 2018. So right now though, and then you see over here right now, basically we've already had, I think it's maybe like 4 races or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Or the ratings have been up. I mean, they haven't been up. They haven't been up a lot. They've been slight increases, but they've been so far, I think, a great progress that the sport needs. That what it was, from like 2017, 2018, because 2018, I kind of knew it was going to tank. The only reason I knew is because NASCAR lost Dale Earnhardt Jr. that year.
Yeah.
He retired, and I knew that was going to be a big blow. Another one that kind of retired but came back as well was Matt Kenseth, which I think brought the ratings maybe a tiny bit up, but they weren't up by a lot percent. And that's kind of what you're seeing now. I do think they're going to definitely come up now in like the Xfindies. I mean, like in the Truck Series when Greg Biffle comes back to Texas around June for the truck as well, who, we haven't seen race since 2016 in a NASCAR series, so it's going to be good seeing him again. So I think right now there are a lot of costs going on. They still, for example, like Bristol, one thing to go about Bristol is that attendance was horrible at Bristol. The attendance at Bristol, I think, only got around, they said 38,000, which Bristol holds 160,000. That's not good. Especially, I'm going from, I think it was a spring race, even though the dates were changed from 2009 to 10 years later. Bristol was nearly full for like for a spring race with 160,000 from their 165,000. But that doesn't mean it's dying, because I just think they need to change the date in Bristol, and it'll be definitely better. And, they're making all these, NASCAR's doing a good job, I think, making all these changes right now, but they have to work on it. I think right now they're rushing too much. And I know why they're rushing, because, fans are impatient. They want this change now. They don't like what's going on. They don't like what Brian France did for all these years. But I just think right now they just need to take their time, don't listen to the fans, and just do what you're doing right now. Take it one step of a time. As the 76ers say, trust the process.
Yeah. All right. Any last NASCAR thoughts here?
I just definitely Richmond is in fact coming on Saturday at 7:30. That'll be on the regular Fox station. I'm looking at Richmond for 2018. The winner was in fact Kyle Busch. I'm going to pull up actually the results right now. Last year's 2018 race during the spring. Kyle Busch ended up sweeping both Richmond races, spring and fall. But if we're looking at the race for the spring, it was Kyle Busch. Chase Elliott just beat out Denny Hamlin for second. That was when Hendrick was still struggling. So I think you have to look at guys like Chase Elliott. Saturday. You have to look at guys like Kyle Larson. He won there back in 2017 during the playoffs. Kyle Busch, as I said, he's so good at Richmond. I think he has like 6 wins at Richmond right now, so you definitely have to look at him.
Yeah.
Never want to count out Joey Logano, because that Team Penske is right now, I think, the best team right next to Gibbs. So you do not want to count out Team Penske Racing. Jimmy Johnson right now, he was beginning of the year on a little slide. Last year he finished 6th in the spring race. I look for Jimmy Johnson to be up possibly around that top 10 area again. Clint Boyer won here as well, 2012, of course, during the fall, but he won everything another time as well. Kurt Busch last year finished 11th, but he won here back in 2015. And for how good he's been running in that one car right now, I look for Kurt Busch possibly maybe make a surprise win. We'll have to see what happens. And that's basically like it for those guys. Who I think might struggle though, One Martin Truex Jr. because he hasn't been. I think he's been just lackluster right now with Gibbs. I know it's his first time there, but it basically the same equipment they have with Furniture Row. So I don't know what's going on, but they haven't they've just been silent. Like no one's really talked about the 2017 champion much. They're probably going to have to look at maybe I'd say Austin Dillon may struggle. RCR hasn't really been all that great, but they've had some runs in the top 5, and then they would fall back to 10th. Austin Dillon has only had, basically finished 10th the whole time here. He might struggle a bit. Roush, I know is definitely going to get better than what they were last year, but I still think they are, miles away from doing something great. Roush, I think, is going to struggle as well, but that's pretty much it. Struggle. I think Hendrick Motorsports right now. I think they've had 2 great weeks. I think I get 2 cars to the top in the later top 10s, but besides that, I don't think they get a win this week.
All right. Thanks for coming on. Look forward to talking with you in the future.
Oh yeah. Thank you guys. You guys have a great night.
Thanks. You too. So, Luke, before we go, do you have any MLB thoughts, just as a whole?
One thing I would
talk
say,
about the Albies extension.
I don't get that from his perspective. I don't get that. Could have made $35 million for 7 years.
Yeah, that's really bad advising.
I get having the long-term security, but I just think there was more money for him to make.
Yeah, I agree.
And one thing, Noah, I have to say, this is not a blip in the radar for the Rays. They're good. I picked them to make the playoffs this year. I did. Preseason, I did. I think that they're one of the best managers in baseball.
All right. For me, when I look at the NBA, for the MLB, excuse me, I know it's going to sound ridiculous, but I'm starting to give the Mariners some real thought here. I know their offense isn't going to be this good. What?
To me, they need to. If they're still like this in mid to late May, then come talk to me.
Yeah, I mean they've had some guys just on tears.
Yeah, they've had some sort of random players just going off.
Like Domingo Santana and D. Gordon and Dan Vogelback. They're all just going off. All right. Luke, do you have any last thoughts before we wrap it up here? That's going to do it for our Faithful Fans podcast number 3. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to working with you guys in the future.